Welcome to The Mohit Show. In this video, I'll be covering posts from r/Detrans, a well-moderated subreddit for people questioning, desisting, or detransitioning. Now on to this video's first post, titled, "Turns out I'm just autistic." So, the past, 12 years of my life, basically half, I had this constant feeling that I was trans. It had me crying, anxious, depressed, suicidal at times, but most of all severely confused. Because I actually did not care about my gender all that much. And I didn't even like the typical girly stuff. But I felt this immense pull towards intelligent, quirky girls, and when I had a girlfriend, I felt that being with her wasn't enough. I wanted us to meld together and be one. Turns out that I was just hopelessly in love with her, and that I really misinterpreted my feelings. I mean, I often don't even know that I'm hungry, or why I'm tired, or how I could be so sure about more complex parts about myself. So, how could I be so sure about more complex parts about myself? I got diagnosed with ASD recently, and so much stuff has been clicking since then. I'm finally starting to understand myself. I fear for others in my situation, those who can't find out what they really feel, those who do answer the call of the trans community hug box with their answers. I don't like the modern internet, so I kept my identity struggles mostly towards my family and friend circles, who all would accept me as a man, woman, non-binary, and man again, without judgment. I owe a lot to them. I know many don't have this privilege. From the comments, a Detrans male comments, "When I was diagnosed autistic at 38, 2 years after losing health insurance and subsequently stopping estrogen, I found out a lot clicked. Makes more sense. So glad you found yourself." And another Detrans male comments, "Many of us are. Glad you figured things out." And the Detrans female comments, "Sometimes I wonder. I've had several doctors, therapists tell me, you are definitely not autistic. But I've always been different. I was a weird kid in school, always having interests considered strange and hyperfixation. I can't look at people in the eye and I'm socially awkward. And knowing that there's such a connection between autism and dysphoria, I have to wonder. But everybody and their mom says I'm definitely not autistic." And a desisted male replies to that, "Like user said, that may be because autism in women is still severely underdiagnosed. I always found it interesting that people who don't know me would often ask if I was autistic, but friends and family were certain that I wasn't. The thing is, my family just accepted me the way I was. I found my friends through shared interests, so there wasn't really any situation where my ASD manifested itself. But throw me into a busy club with people screaming over the already way too loud music, and then it just radiates off me, I guess." I wrote to someone else that had longer ASD quizzes often mapped to the DSM-5 criteria fairly well. So you can try one like this to see if you score high. I thought the diagnosis was only a label, but it actually helped me more than I could have known. If you think you have it, keep asking for a full test. And a D-trans female comments as well. "Did they say why they don't think you're autistic? Maybe you're better at socializing than they assume an autistic person could be." And the D-trans female replies to that, "They never really explained well. Very frustrating. I've been diagnosed with ADD and GAD. I used to have abysmal social skills as a child, but I always chalked it up to me being a sheltered only child. I can definitely read body language." And the desisted female comments on that, "A lot of people assume that only boys, not even men, can be autistic. It's really dumb." Now, a desisted male replies to the original post. Aside from personality stuff, very introverted, uncommon interest, social awkward, very detail oriented, overwhelmed easily, too often in my own head, and so forth, a few examples. When I'm on the phone and someone asks me a question IRL, I may fall silent for a while and then give the answer to the person on the phone. Some days I eat so little I get low blood sugar and or panic attacks, while on others I eat myself sick. I need to log my food to know if I'm eating a normal amount. And most importantly, the anxiety. Because I have no idea how I come across to other people, new social situations give me so much stress. And if I go do something new, say going to a different store than usual, I need to find out everything I can about it. The route to the store's layout, entrances, exits, where the baskets are, and so on. Because I may do something weird and look stupid. Now I can accept that these are just innate to me. There's not much I can do about it. I still can get stressed about things, but it's so much easier to dismiss the fear. And of course, most things are not so bad as I thought. Most people don't think I'm a massive creep, for instance. I found that the more complex autism quizzes online are very close to the actual criteria in the DSM 5, which is what was used to diagnose me. If you score higher on a test such as this one, I once had a better one but I can't find it now, it's probably worth seeing a psychologist for it. And I also just have to add, don't take these online tests too seriously. If they show you something that you might question, you can always go to a psychologist to actually confirm things. And the last comment on this post, by a detransition male, I had the exact same experience of wanting to merge with my girlfriend when I was a teen. It was my autism making it hard for me to understand my self boundaries for my emotional attachment. Took forever to understand. Now on to the next post, titled Tired. This is by a detrans female. I'm so tired of being the victim, the one to blame. Knowing that knowing there isn't any coming back from this. I'll never felt the same songs in the car with my song again on a night ride home. I'll never have the same voice I had. I've looked for hours and hours and hours and nobody has gotten their singing completely back. I'm in so much pain. I can't talk today. My medicated mouthwash isn't helping. My old voice is just gone. It doesn't exist anymore. I watch old clips of myself and cry. Why did it have to be me? My mom is getting tired, taking care of me. I'm like a baby all over again. All I can do is lay around and cry to my friends. I'm so tired. Medical professionals can't fix this, and I keep begging God and He won't heal me. So I'm tired. I'm so tired of burdening everyone I love. Sometimes I just daydream about getting a horrible case of something and dying soon. Because in my mind, having died living a life where I was myself is better than imagining a future where I have to live knowing I lost the one thing that defined me the most. After going through like 5 jobs, I finally got one I can manage. And now I'm not even me. None of my coworkers know that I was such a happy person, that I used to sound like the other girls my age that work there. They said I sound old. I don't want to be a statistic. Why did this have to happen to me? I don't know what to do at this point. I'm getting anointed by some pastor I don't know on Tuesday. If God doesn't help me, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I need someone to lie to me and tell me everything will just go back to the way it was. I need someone to tell me this is a bad dream. I need someone to hold me and not let go until this goes away. Next post, titled, I am filled with so much regret. This is by a detrans female. I regret it all, and I did it to myself. I'm genuinely contemplating suicide because I just don't think I'll ever get over this. I cannot live like this. Unless I can somehow magically change my voice back to normal, stop growing hair on my face and body, and get my breasts back, I don't see a point in continuing. I feel like an imposter. I am constantly trying to act feminine. I'm terrified people think I'm a trans woman or a guy. As soon as I open my mouth and start talking, I freeze. I fucking despise my voice. Even before I transitioned, I looked very androgynous. Now I'm far too gone. Fuck, I hate myself for doing this. The biggest mistake of my life. I am filled with hate towards myself and my body. Whenever I hear a female voice as opposed to mine, I have to stop myself from crying. I started crying today in the doctor's office because I saw someone who reminded me of myself before I transitioned. Funnily enough, she was there to get a testosterone injection. It's an LGBT clinic. I'm terrified for this generation. I don't want the same thing that happened to me to happen to others. I've just fucked up too hard, and there's no going back. I'm ruined. From the comments. A Detrans female comments, "Hey, sadly I can't help you because I myself, I'm in almost the exactly same position as you. The only thing I can do is tell you you're not alone in this. This means you don't have to fight alone and we can fight together and get our happiness that was taken from us." And the original poster replies, "Thanks for your response. I saw a post of yours a few days ago and I could relate to it so much. I was 18 when I transitioned medically, so similar to your age. I didn't realize it was a mistake until I was 25. And the D-trans female comments, "Hey, damn, it's so sad, isn't it? Why is this happening?" Frowny face. "I can't understand it. I'm so sorry you're going through it too. But after joining this subreddit and all, I have heard so many strong people who were in the same situation as us and are finally better now. And I think we can get out of this hole too somehow." And the D-trans female comments on the original post, I've been in the dark hole you are in. So I know those thoughts are running the show right now, and you don't have much control over listening to them. That torturous, self-hating rumination is lying to you. It is very possible to have a meaningful, joyful life with a deep voice and facial hair, and a surgically changed chest. If you haven't worked with a psychiatrist to get some relief from these thoughts, I really encourage you to pursue this and working with a therapist. Zoloft has been a huge blessing for me, and therapists have been too. Before testosterone cypionate was created in the lab, women were running around, having epic lives with deep voices and facial hair. Women have had mastectomies and lived long, impactful lives. The idea your physical form has to look a certain way to have a life worth living is self-objectification and applies the ethics of the oldest, most hateful capitalist mindset to yourself. People have a sacred value that has nothing to do with what they look like, period. You're not your meanest thoughts. They are simply events you must weather. I need Zoloft to help me weather mine. I know that I am valuable enough to deserve pharmaceutical help and therapy and affirmations and rest to help me and weather mean thoughts. Help me weather mean thoughts. You are valuable enough to deserve all this too." Next post, titled, Willful Shared Delusions. This is by a desisted female. TLDR, I hated myself. I wanted to be someone else. I found a person who helped me LARP. Once I realized I was being manipulative and being manipulated, I slowly came back to reality. That longer version. I'm upset over how stupid and delusional I was to think I wasn't really a woman and that I should transition. I'm in disbelief I ever let people manipulate me to reject my body because it wasn't what they wanted because they're actually attracted to men and fetishize being trans themselves along with the whole process of transitioning. They deny encouraging me, but plausible deniability and all that. I honestly thought I was smarter than that, but feeling wanted to be part of something bigger overrode my logic circuits. I know there are lots of paths to transition, and for me, it was low self-worth, trauma, and a feeling of perpetual victimhood. Probably the main reason was wanting a do-over at life. be reborn without actually ending my life. I was deeply, deeply miserable, and pretending to be someone else became a way for me to cope. I've been pretending to be someone else since I was little, not in the regular ways children play pretend. I really get lost in a character. Even my femme phase wasn't the real me. Any sign of pretending gotta be a red flag for sure. Why did I think the male character was more real than any other? Nope, all of me was fake. It's very embarrassing to have thought there was some secret, better, more intelligent, attractive, more fun, more likable version of myself that was under my skin. In my mind, I was an attractive, queer, NB, gay femboy, and I managed to convince other mimics out there enough to get infirmed. When I look at my photos, I've always been an ugly masculine girl slash woman, and people shunned me for being unattractive. Or they included me so they looked inclusive and kind. That's what today's spaces, including me, only went. That today's queer spaces, including me, only went so far in my self esteem too. Okay, sorry, I read that completely wrong. That today's queer spaces, included me, only went so far for my self esteem too. It was all a pantomime of who looks the queerest, who's doing enough for the cause, and who's the most popular with hookups and dating. I was always jealous of the ones who were popular with men and the ones who were cooler than me. How is that different to being jealous of high school gender conforming pretty girls? I found it very annoying after a while too. It's not because they were queer or trans, but because they didn't talk about anything else. I was also encouraged in my delusion by people who vaguely positioned themselves as romantic partners. They saw this true me as what? A femboy rather than a masculine tomboy woman? Now I question why. That's clearly a cope and one I bought into because I hated being a woman at that time. This was exacerbated by their disgust. They helped create an elaborate game of pretending I'm really a femboy for the sole purpose of hooking up to boost their own ego. Thankfully, I have enough sense at my age to not repeat the same mistakes with the same person I made them with the first time when I was younger. It was toxic in retrospect, and I'm still coming to terms knowing that people I thought were good people were actually enabling my self harm for their own sexual urges. It could have been worse. To be clear, I was willful in this. I wanted to be seen as an attractive femboy. I wanted to be desirable to people I desire. Figuring out what people want sexually from me has always been a mental challenge that I've enjoyed. Yet it doesn't detract from the issue at hand, which is my habit of positioning myself as an object for someone else's fantasies. At some point, I seriously believed gay men, especially trans, would be alright dating me if I signaled enough that I was like a boy slash man. That was the biggest source of shame for me. Like, come on, I didn't just lie to myself, I let others lie to themselves too. We became enmeshed in a shared delusion. Although I was sensible enough to not invade men's spaces like toilets as a mature aged adult, I wanted to. I felt like I belonged there, like I had the right to their spaces. I willingly invaded men's spaces when I was younger, though. And although I didn't lie about my OSAB in the gay bars, I let them think whatever they thought so I could avoid responsibility. I didn't correct them. If they called me a boy or not a girl based on superficial things like clothes and a haircut, I was pleased to be wanted. As for passing or communicating my gender identity, I feel stupid that I even divided anything into gender groups in the first place. How people stand or sit isn't gendered. Being ladylike or a gentleman is about having the etiquette slash manners of the wealthy, not gender. How I walked was masculine? What? How did I reach that conclusion from not being ladylike or having the right manners? My brain was masculine? My brain is a female brain, no matter how masculine I claim it is. So, what if somebody could cut it up and find a bit similar to a man? Still a female brain because it's in my body. Just because I had masculine interests and wanted to be good at science. I didn't know it at the time, but I've only ever been looking for genuine love and affection. I wanted someone to think nice thoughts when looking at my actual face, not to pretend my face looks different all while claiming that the real me or my potential and that they're my twin flame or some other deluded fantasy where I still have to balance on a pedestal and be perfect. I'm not the person they wonderwalled on social media, a femboy fantasy version of me. If they read this, yes, I saw. That's not the real me anymore. It was a maladaptive coping mechanism, an ego based persona. I'm not that same little kid begging you to play with me anymore. It's true that people don't forget how you made them feel. Now, from the comments, a Detrans male says, a Detrans female says, I have been a maladaptive daydreamer my whole life. I used it to cope with feeling like an alien in every social setting as soon as I could walk and talk. My life was boring and dreadful, and I was convinced I was an ugly and awful person, so of course I wanted to be someone better. I created a male character that was like me in every way except better and more desirable. An escape from sexism, and I can finally be someone I felt was attractive and had control over every setting he was in. Testosterone wasn't enough to turn me into that confident man, because I still couldn't get S, redo, and grow up as a boy. I'll always be plagued with my childhood that was ruined because I was born with the genitalia that makes society view you as inhuman. I still have trouble seeing myself, the real self, as someone who is attractive and in control. Now the next post, titled, Ever feel like some things are overused? This is by a Decisted Male. And it's this image right here, saying, that's transphobia, actually. From the comments, a Decisted Female says, yeah, wish people would relearn the differences between argument and hate speech someday. An original poster replies, they don't really like discussion. This is why I call trans an ideology. And the Decisted Female replies, I just wonder how everyone else so easily joins in with that logic. Like the whole media be singing with the choir. Dunno. Just can't wrap my head around it. And the Decisted Female comments on that. It's because it seems to make sense and be logical on the surface. I absolutely believed every shred of trans ideology as I contributed to it in theoretical academic circles. The trans people I knew in the late 80s and through the early 2000s are leading LGBT and trans activists. Many of the ideas that are being spread are exact words I said. I can explain more in chat about how my logic was backwards. Now I've fully desisted. Sometimes I feel like I stay on this sub to correct my mistakes. Let people know I was wrong with my logic. Ironically, I used to think my highly logical mind was extra proof of having a male brain. Shaking my head. And the desisted female replies, guess you're right. Most people just won't think about it in so much detail. Like I probably also only did because it affects me directly. So they don't see the flaws and dangers. And on the surface, there actually is nothing bad in acceptance and all, at least on a personal level. And a D-trans female comments on the original post. It's a social strategy and it works. Pulling the transphobia card is a useful social shield, and it can gain you friends and fame, lol. 1. Assume victim status. 2. Anytime someone tries to harass you for anything, even if it's actually for a good reason, claim they're being transphobic. That they're bullying someone who's so weak they would kill themselves. And 3. Profit. This isn't a tactic exclusive to the transgender community. Various minority groups use this too sometimes. It can become tricky because there's real discrimination, but people find that they can assume victim class status as a tool and convince themselves they're solely innocent victims. It's a pretty good tool. The drawback is that in order to effectively wield it, one must take on certain mindsets that often lead to poorer life outcomes because you have to self limit or even self harm yourself. Is falling into this belief system good or bad? I don't know. Let's instead ask how useful it is. Being trans is a useful way for people to get a free pass on a lot of things. The issue is all the medicalization usually leads to a path of sterilization. If I were to look at this as a strategy game, the best course might be to believe one is transgender but doesn't need to alter their body. The individual then retains the ability to reproduce, a win biologically speaking, while also being able to use the transphobia as a weapon against anyone in their way. Next post, titled, Did anyone lose people who you thought were friends after detransitioning? This is by a detrans male. I stopped estrogen last November, so almost 1 year off hormones. Over the past year, the group of people who I thought were friends basically stopped talking to me as I started living as a man again. It's been pretty lonely this past year, but at the same time, not having constant affirmation or support has allowed myself time to heal, to begin to heal in a way. It just seems like I've had people in my friends be my friends because I was trans male to female. But now since detransition, no one cares anymore. So it feels like that period of time wasn't genuine. I just wonder if anyone else had a similar experience. Now a detrans female says, Yeah, lol. Ex-friend of 11 years and I no longer speak. We both came out as trans at 15. So many problems in that relationship. It wasn't just this. But me detransitioning was basically the straw that broke the camel's back. We both acted insanely stupid when the final blowout happened. I never knew they'd be able to fully internalize that detransitioning doesn't. I knew they'd never be able to fully internalize that detransitioning doesn't mean transphobic. If I could do it over, I would have just kept my life to myself and slowly distanced. With passionate woke leftists, detransitioning is seen as a call to war. But I'm not a soldier, I'm just an effing person trying to live and breathe and pay my bills and hang out with my dog. A detrans male comments, Everybody left my life except for my childhood best friend and my family. At the same time, it's a good thing that we have lost friends, because we have outgrown our own mindsets and we are becoming better versions of ourselves. More friends will come. A decised female comments, For me, it was a little less direct. My first year of university, I stayed in the LGBT dorm because, well, I thought I was trans. Everyone there was amicable there to everyone else, willing to be friendly and chat and say hi. There, I met someone that was trans. She just happened to be there because she's applied to the dorm when she was trans. People didn't really like her because they somehow found her rad femme Tumblr, but there wasn't too much unfriendliness towards her, at least not behind her back or to her face that I saw. At the end of the school year, she made a PowerPoint about detransitioning, which I was super happy about and wanted to share with the dorm community because I secretly detransitioned myself. She posted it to the group chat, and soon other people said this made me uncomfortable, without actual criticism or detail. She did take it down instantly, though. As I hung out with other people in the dorm, they lambasted her behind her back. They joked about if she was playing this game called Secret Hitler, where you're supposed to find, then kill Hitler. And they would just kill her over and over, regardless of whether she was Hitler or not. She was still LGBT, too. She was lesbian or bisexual. It upset me that the other people could turn on someone who was part of their community in an instant. That's when I realized that the people there only liked me, were only friendly to me because of who they thought I was. If I ever shared my own views outwardly, I'd have been harassed and made fun of behind my back. Or at the very least, I don't think they would have cared to try and be nice to me. It does feel insincere to me as well. I don't know quite how to put it into words. This is from a detrans female with a CCSD. Lost friends over revealing I'm a detransitioner, as well as going a bit more public with my detransition. There are people I went to school with who are in denial that I detransitioned and think I'm just a trans woman now, which is ridiculous. Heard of this happening to many people just trying to move on with their lives, not necessarily activists. And the Detrans female comments, oh, for sure, both people who just wanted the clout of having a token trans friend, and old friends who couldn't believe that I was detransitioning and not a secret Republican. Turns out I had a lot of unbalanced relationships. Let them go. It's hard to fight through the feelings of being abandoned, but anytime someone wants to leave your life, it's a good reclamation of your energy to let them leave. Next post, titled, Are there still places that don't use the affirmation approach? Long story short, from the age of 3 to 6, I insisted I was a girl. I would regularly ask my mom to call a magician to turn me into a girl. Eventually, my parents made me see a psychologist. That was back in the late 90s. I was young, so I don't remember the sessions at all. But clearly, whatever we talked about was helpful because I stopped saying I was a girl and stopped thinking about it. I did later experience some gender confusion in my teenage years, but that also went away once I did an honest introspection of myself. So, anyways, I'm going to assume the psychologist I saw back then didn't have an affirmation approach. Pretty sure she didn't tell me, yes, you are in fact a girl. So now I'm wondering, do such clinics or psychologists even still exist? All I hear about is the affirmation approach. Are there still places where the parents of gender confused children can go to get them some good explanatory therapy? Or is that no longer a thing? Now, from the comments, someone who desisted, this is a great point and why it's so scary that our mental health clinics are where they are now. Studies have shown over and over again that children have distorted and black and white thinking about gender. They think a Barbie doll has changed sex when you put a suit on her. They don't understand they can be gender non-conforming, even if you explain it to them. It's extremely common for gay kids, autistic kids, and other kids to be gender non-conforming, and along with gender non-conformity comes understanding that you're different, wishing to be like the people who get to wear things and act the way you want. I wanted to play video games and watch Naruto. I wanted to play with the boys and therefore thought I thought like a boy. In addition to thinking girl stuff was cringe, and not wanting to be likened to them in any way because of how people would see me or assume things about me. It's really important to let kids grow up with the understanding that they are their sex, and no actions, behaviors, preferences, hobbies, clothing, likes, desires, or relationship to their sex will change their sex. The sister person replies to that. Wild how thinking that kids with their physically smaller brains might not be experts on anything is a crazy concept these days. Even if a girl picks up a toy lawnmower or likes shorter hair, I wouldn't go out of my way to say, great, look how gender non-conforming you are. It's a kid being a kid and enjoying whatever fascinates them within the moment. It doesn't need to be called anything or even pointed out. A Detrans female comments on the original post. I think it's still a thing, just more below the radar as it's branded as conversion therapy now. And the Detrans female replies, which is hilarious given trans affirmation is conversion therapy. At least a good thing, it's only one level deep and thought misdirection. Now, Detrans female comments on the original post. In many places, this is illegal now. It's considered conversion therapy, for example, in Canada or California. Now on to the next post, titled, Will I be able to ever feel happy again? This is by a D-trans female. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm mad. I'm depressed. I'm hurt. I'm grieving. I feel remorse. I can't deal with all this pain. I lost my breasts. I have a deep voice. Visible Adam's apple, some facial hair, acne. I can't enjoy stuff anymore. Right now, I'm laying on the couch I used to lay on before all this happened. Before I destroyed my life. There's almost nothing I can do that won't remind me of my past and give me flashbacks. I have so many flashbacks and I daydream about running away from the hospital before surgery. I want to feel normal again. I want to live my life without having to be reminded of all this constantly. Is this possible? Will I ever be happy again? Please tell me it's possible. I don't hear from a lot of Detrans people who are now happy and who aren't depressed because of what happened. I can't deal with all of this. I want a time machine so badly. I can't understand how I could think the way I did when all this happened, when I did all this to myself. I want my bad body back so badly. Please give me hope. Now, from the comments by a Detrans female, I feel like I could have written this myself. I don't know if it's possible to live a life with no reminders. There isn't a day that goes by where I don't think about how my body has changed and what I would be like had I not made the choices I did as a teenager. But I do know that experiencing joy and happiness and love is possible, while learning to accept your new self. I will say that I think this sub is more filled with people like us and me coming on when we're sad. When people are happy, they may not share when things are going well because they're just living life. I've worked to accept my new self and have a lot of amazing things happen over the last few months. Life is amazing for me, and I'm surrounded by people I love every day, and I'm in the exact same boat as you in terms of the changes I've experienced. I wish you the best in your healing journey. Happiness and acceptance are possible. Next post, titled, Did any other assigned male at birth people who tried estrogen get sick? This is by a D-trans male. Am I the only person who stopped HRT for strictly health reasons? I wish I could go on estrogen every day, and I really just don't think I'm ever going to be able to tolerate the side effects it gives me. It's not even that I care about my health, it's just that estrogen seems like it made my anxiety so bad, and my heart was always racing, and it was all just so fucked up. But after stopping, I was able to try and just accept myself a little bit, and it was working for a while, but I can't stop thinking about how good things could have been if I didn't get so sick. I want to get tests done or something. I really hope there's a way around these issues. I don't know if anyone else here has experienced this so far, but if so, what should I do? From the comments, by someone who's D-trans, I relate. Stopped estrogen because of terrible chronic pain issues stemming from autoimmune conditions flaring. My mood was also terrible, on a pendulum constantly. Totally exhausting. Feels for women who are on this hormonal swing. Getting off was a huge relief. My pain issues resolved. I stopped feeling the need to show off my femininity and eased into a more carefree feeling about my gender expression. A D-trans male comments, I've been there. Orchiectomy. I was taking estradiol. I was gaining fat, gynecomastia, could barely lift a 40-pound suitcase, box a kitty litter bag. I said enough. Reversed, take very low T, now metal testosterone, no estro, feel a hell of a lot better, density is back, cardio is back, weight's down. Chose overall health first over a trans health paradigm that may not be for you. Or choose overall health first, yeah. Now, a D-trans male comments on the original post. I share the same problems as well. Anxiety, wonky blood work, and weight gain caused me to get quite sick in many ways. Now that I'm off, I do feel much better overall. Now, a D-trans male comments. I got injured pretty badly from stuff unrelated to hormones. My doctor put an immediate pause on HRT since it was severe and said I'd probably have to take a break from it for a year to forever, depending on my bones. At that point, I had a midlife crisis at 17 and decided to stop it. I'm still living, so who cares? Next post, titled Old School Detransitioners. This is by a D-trans female. This is something I've been thinking about recently. I keep seeing a lot of people say detransition used to be so rare back when there was more gatekeeping. But now we have so many detransitioners popping up. But I'm not certain about that. I remember finding a post from Usenet, posted all the way back in 2005, from a male to male, who realized they were just autogynephiliac and not a trans woman, and regretted sex reassignment surgery. I also read an article about someone who transitioned in the 70s and then detransitioned in the 80s. Do we have anyone here who detransitioned before the trans boom of the mid-2010s? I wonder if detransition was not so uncommon back in the old school days, and if detransitioners were simply quieter or underground. It's hard enough detransitioning in 2022, so I can't imagine how hard it would have been before people barely even knew what a trans person was. I find it fascinating how they were pushed through. From the comments, a desisted individual comments, AGP males don't detrans very often, and they used to be the most common type. By contrast, the most common trans profile these days is a teenage girl, and they are most certainly transitioning for the same reason teenage girls in the past used to go to pro-Annie websites. I do think modern detrans is very different. The original poster, what is pro-Annie? Zoomer moment. And someone who's socially trans and regrets a medical transition says, hint, eating disorder. Yeah, it was anorexia, pro-anorexia. Now, a detrans person comments on the original post. I transitioned before the trans boom, and transition was rare at the time. I only detransitioned a lot later though. At that time, I knew a couple of desisters, but that word didn't exist. At least the desisters weren't vilified the way detransitioners and desisters are now. Though not all of these desisters were in any way against trans people at the time. They just realized it's not for them. I never heard of anyone who had detransitioned, but of course, that doesn't mean there weren't any. Of course, detransition was very rare if it happened, because transition itself was very rare. I actually could believe detransition was rarer than it is nowadays, just because transition wasn't something that people knew about. It didn't seem like the solution, like it is nowadays. People with discomfort with their bodies didn't think that, I must be trans. Most people didn't even know female to male trans people existed, and being non binary wasn't really an option. Some news detrans comments, a lot of trans people stop hormones and don't call it detransitioning. What we're seeing now is a formation of a new community and social identity. And the detrans female with the CCSD comments, I transitioned in the mid 2000s and detransitioned in the late 2000s. I mostly kept to myself and blamed myself entirely for my transition not working, as I was told that my case was rare and an oddity. I only started to become more skeptical of that as I watched the trans community start guiding children through the crack I slipped through, and of course, after taking a sledgehammer to it. Children transitioners were unheard of back then unless they had intersex or DSD conditions, like I did, which led to a special exemption if the right loopholes could be done. The system, or DSM-4, wasn't as flawed, but it still captured the GNC people who were homosexual and heavily traumatized. But many of those people probably are just toughing through it. The stat they have on detransition are lies anyways. Considering if you look into the data, you'll see that most only went off records of report backs and worse, report backs and desire to fully reverse transition procedures having went all the way to, with bottom surgeries. Now, in desisted female comments, regarding the numbers and if it was rarer, I strongly suppose that there would be a statistic bias. People stopping to do something are generally very hard to assess. In case of detransition, they might be without further ado just cease doing hormones or not pursue further transitional steps. Therefore, it's kind of invisible to medical statistics. And if you want to target them directly in a study, how do you even find them? For trans people, you could, for example, advertise your study in your local LGBT center, but detransitioners might not visit those places so often anymore. Next is difficulty. No, or the next difficulty. Many detransers might just want to leave that topic all behind, as it could as it could bring up bad feelings, regret, etc., or just don't feel relevant anymore. So even if you could reach them, they may refrain from participating. Therefore, it all seems very plausible that detransitioning has always been highly underestimated, even more so in the past. If transitioning is itself a fringe topic, detransitioning will be even more so. On a societal large scale, it would thus be disregarded as a non issue, but probably not rightfully so. And the original poster replies to this: "Yeah, I believe this could be likely. I do still think detransitioners are quite rare. As in my environment at least, everybody knows at least one trans person, but almost nobody knows a detransitioner. I'm the only one that my friends know of. I also have a theory that male to males aren't actually rarer than female to males to females. There's likely a bunch of factors leading to their invisibility compared to male to females. They may feel like they'll be seen as failed or weak males, and feel more inclined to just leave it in the past. And for the most part, they can, if all they did was HRT, because it doesn't leave as many visible side effects as T. I can easily see a D-trans male changing towns and never telling anyone he was once trans. D-trans women, on the other hand, are socialized to seek out support groups more than men are, and it's harder to hide facial hair and a deep voice, so they may feel they have no choice but to be open about it. I didn't tell my provider that I was detransitioning, and they haven't reached out to me." And the D-trans male replies to this: "I am one of those D-trans men. I detransitioned in 2018, moved towns, and didn't tell anyone new in my life what had happened to me for several years. I was stealth in a way. Nowadays, I'm more open about my past with people because it's a heavy secret to bear, but for a few good years, I didn't discuss the topic with friends or family. We all just swept it under the carpet and pretended it never happened." And someone who's D-trans comments on the original post: "I transitioned in 2009, if that helps. So not part of the boom, just a touch prior to the uptick in awareness." Now onto the last post, titled "My Own Thoughts on Trans Children." This is by a D-trans male. "I don't really think children should be encouraged to transition in any way. It's of course fine to let your child radically break gender norms, but to label themselves as being trans just seems wrong. Even when this child says themselves they're actually the opposite sex, it seems wrong to encourage this. Perhaps it's just my own experiences with my parents, but I would give up so much to be able to just go back and have someone actually pause things and help me explore my feelings and dysphoria at that age, rather than pushing it further. I've suffered over a decade of addiction, depression, and suicide attempts as a result of my feelings being encouraged and labeled as not treatable without transition. It's not okay, in my opinion, to let a child go down this path. After years of therapy, I now know the cause of my dysphoria and feelings, but I sometimes cry myself to sleep at night, wishing I was just put in proper therapy as a child, so all of this would have been avoidable. So much of my life has been robbed from me because of my dysphoria. I can't imagine pushing or even allowing a child to go down the same road. Maybe I'm wrong, and most children with dysphoria should be supported and won't ever face the same hardships or want to detransition later. But something about not stepping in and letting these feelings fester inside children just seems so wrong to me. I know for prepubescent children there's no medical aspect to this, but I know myself the harm that even affirming those feelings at such an age can lead to. I just wish it was more realized in our society that dysphoria or a desire to be the opposite sex can be treated harmlessly without affirmation. It just honestly doesn't seem fair to children to fail them in that way. Sorry for the rant. There's just a lot on my mind today. Sorry if this comes off as offensive or hateful in any way. It's sincerely not my intention. I just wish that things could be different for children struggling with such concepts." Now from the comments. D trans female comments: "I'm with you. I told my therapist how much I wanted to be a boy when I was 9 to 10 years old, and I had short hair and only wanted to wear boy clothes. My therapist wanted me to socially transition, and I guess not soon after would have got me to go on hormone blockers too, but my mom thought it was just a phase and we didn't do that. When I came out with 14 as trans, I blame my mom for not letting me transition earlier and how she could have saved me from so much suffering. Doctors told her too that she could have let me transition and that it's the right thing to let me do that now. She blamed herself and believed those doctors, So I got testosterone at 15 and had top surgery at 17. Worst mistake in my life. I'm highly depressive now and even suicidal. I don't know enough about all this to say that everyone is going to feel the same as me one day and regret transitioning, but I don't think it's acceptable to let people who can't take consent to take hormones and have healthy body parts cut off. I was 15 and the doctors knew about my mental health history with bad OCD, and me even going to a mental hospital because I couldn't go to school because of it. I thought that everything is going to get better when I get on testosterone, and when I have top surgery. And I believe me having this mindset should have excluded me from being treated with hormones, etc., even though I think my age should have as well. In no way do I blame my mom for all of this. She trusted those doctors and documentaries the same as I did, and that plus her being blamed for her decisions in the past made her think it's the right thing to do. Who I do blame are the doctors who we trusted, the therapists who didn't question me at all, who made me think almost everything is going to get better after testosterone and top surgery, and who told me that my OCD is caused by me not being able to transition. The clinic that let me transition now doesn't even care much about me being suicidal about this. They send me to other people who don't know shit about trans or detrans people. I don't. I want my breast back and my old voice. I don't want my prominent Adam's apple, and I don't want the facial hair I have. I want my old body back. And that will be all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment below if you want to support this video and others I may make. Please make sure you have a good day.